Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Code for Tech Solutions. Today in this video we are going to cover a new topic. So we are going to see how we can configure application environments in Angular. As we all know that we are dealing with multiple application environments in real practice like local, development, stage, UAT and production. These are all different environments within we are consistently changing our code and deploying our code changes to these different environments. Now the question is like how we can maintain these different environments, how we can configure for all those, how we can separate the build and run process for all these. So we are going to see in Angular how we can achieve that, how we can maintain different environments like production, staging and development. So in this video we are specifically covering how we can configure application environments in Angular. So let us see how we can achieve that. To better understand what we have done, we have created one backend application using Spring Boot, and we are trying to connect to H2 database. We have configured our H2 database, and here we have created one controller with get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, and delete mapping. However, we are not going to use the rest of the APIs, but basically we are going to see the get mapping, and we will retrieve the data which is available in our database. Now let us see our application, backend application is running. Now let us run our application using get mapping through Postman. Now we can see we have at least 4 records in our database, like in our H2 database. Seems good. Now our backend application is running on port 8082. Now let us focus on our front-end application. On the front-end side, what we have done, like we have created atom module and we have created one atom service as well. And herein we have mentioned we are giving a call to all the backend APIs through HTTP client, and these are the HTTP methods like get, create, get, post, and update and delete. All these methods we are giving a call to backend APIs, and we will retrieve the data from there or post the data to the backend side. Now here is our home component wherein we are showing the data which we render from the backend application, and we are showing the data in a table like this one. Now this is about the overall code. Now we can run our front-end application and check how it goes. Now ng-o, it will launch our application into the browser. Now we have cross-checked that through get APIs it is retrieving 4 records. Like these are the 4 records it has as a data. Now we want to render all these on the front end side. Now let us check it. Here we can see, if we go back to the console, it is just showing the headers, it is not showing any data. And if we check, like it is giving some error. Now our front-end application is running on port 4200, whereas our backend application is running on port 8082. Now these are some cross platforms and domains. In real practice these are two different ones. Now how we can make a communication in between these two? Now for that we need to create a proxy, and I have created a dedicated video on that, how we can create a proxy. You can check that video as well. Now here let me create one proxy in a just few minutes. Like let's say here is a proxy.config.json file, and let me add some code so that it will work with the proxy. Now here I can copy this code and we can add to the proxy config file, and we can save it. What it is doing, like for all the API URL starting with API, it is redirecting the front end request to our backend URL. That's it. This is the target URL. Now we need to mention one entry in our angular.json file as well, because we have created the proxy and angular.json. We need to know here inside serve script we need to add this option and proxy config, where it is like inside src we have created proxy config.json file, and we can save this file. Now Now let us kill the running process and let us run it again. We need to save the files first and we can run this using ngser-o. Now we can see it is communicating with the backend application through proxy successfully and there is no error as such. Now seems good. Now our both the application are running fine. Now next thing, like basically our main goal is to create the different environment for different configuration for different environments. Now in Angular, let me open one more terminal at here. So okay, so here we need to go to our project folder first, and here we can use the command. First we need to create different environment files. We can use command ng generate, and here we can use environments. So this command will basically generate different environment for us for this application. Now we can see it has created environment folder. Inside that we have development environment and we have environment.ts file. Okay, fine. Now we have seen that through proxy we have successfully communicated front-end and back-end application. Now here we have created different environment. Now here what we can do, by default the environment.ts is pointing to the production environment, and here we can say production as a true, and we can add production as a true. Similar way for rest of the environments we can say production as a false. Like this is the development environment, we need to say it's a false, right? Seems good. Now let us go to our service component file. This is the atom.service.ts. Here we can see we have the base URL. Now let us create one more variable like API URL, and here which is of type string, and we can assign some URL like, let's say, first of all we can mention let's say for production environment we can write some environment URL like http, let's say myapp.prod.com. this is the production URL, and this URL we can add it here as well. Like this one, this dot API URL, and we can save it. Now this is the production URL we have passed, but we have hard coded it and it here. But what if we want to build it for some other environment like development or staging, then again we need to make this code changes now, which is not a feasible approach. Now we can comment out this. Now instead of this one, what we can copy this and we need to mention it into our environment file. Now this is our environment and this is the production, and here we can say this is the API URL, and here this is the production URL which we need to point when it is choosing the production environment for build. Next, similar way we need to mention the URL for development, and this is the development environment where this production is a false, and this is, we can say, it is a dev environment, and we can save it. Seems good. Now we can go back to the service component, and here now we need to use the environment file, not this variable. What we can do here, we need to import the environment, like environment is this one. Seems good. Now we need to use inside this one, like this is the environment.api URL, and we can save it. Seems good. Now fine. Now we need to save it. Now one more thing we need to do, we have added for development, and this is the production, which is a by default environment. Now we need to make some changes in angular.json file as well. Now as we are using the Angular 18, it will add the script for production as well as development. Now first we need to check the build. Inside build we need to go to configuration file, it here. Now we can see inside configuration we have production configuration it here, and this is the development configuration it here. Now it has covered these two configuration, and this is the default configuration for production. Fine. Now inside sir we can check inside configuration we have production and development, it has covered. Now seems good. Now let us run our application and check how it goes, like how it works. Now let me kill the process first. Fine. Now let us build our application, and to build our application with, let's say, development environment, we can use configuration, and here we can pass the environment which is the development, and let us check how it works. Now we have built it for development environment. Similar way we need to run for development environment to check how whether it is working with the dev environment. This is the configuration for development environment, and here we can use -o to launch it into the browser. Ngser configuration development. Let us check how it works. Now we can see it has launched. Now let us check how. If we go at console, now here we can see it is calling the dev environment, dev API v1 atoms, which is as expected because we have configured for dev, build it for dev and run it for dev. Okay, so we can see it is trying to call the get API for dev environment, which is as expected. Now let us build it for the production and let us see. Now let me kill it. Now this is the build for here. Instead of development we can say production. We can build it first. Now for production, this is for production environment URL, API URL, it should show. For development it is showing dev, myapp.dev, and for environment it is showing product. So for production it is showing myapp.prod.com. Now we have built it. Now let us run it using ngser, and here we can launch it into the browser using -o. This is for production. Now it should show the production link, and it should try to call the get API for that with production URL. Now here we can see it has called a production URL, which is as expected because we have built our application using production configuration and run it using the production as well. That's why it is calling the production. If you refresh, it should call the get API. Seems good. It is calling the get for production. Okay, seems good. Now it is working for production and development. What if we want to add one more environment similar to this one? Now let me copy this environment and suppose if we want to add for staging environment, let me rename it. So here this is for staging, and we can rename this URL. This is for stage, and we can save it. So we have created one new environment for stage. Now we need to make an entry in angular.json, one for build configuration. This is the configuration for production. This is for development, and we can copy the development entry because we need to add one more entry for product staging. So we can add it for staging, and here we need to file replacement. For file replacement we need to add the staging instead of development because this is for staging. We have added. Similar way we need to check for serve as well, and here we need to copy this part. Here we need to add one more entry for staging, and this should be staging. Okay, seems good. We can save it. Now if you have any test for different environments, you need to make the appropriate entry for test as well, but right now we are not adding. Now we have added the staging related entry at here. Okay, fine. Now let us check. Now we can kill this process and let us build it using staging. We need to save the files before we build it. Okay, now let us run it using staging environment. For staging configuration, let us check how it works. Now the staging URL myapp.stage.com, you should try to call this URL and you should try to call the get method on that. Now let us see, inspect and go to console. Okay, seems good. It is calling the stage URL, which the configuration of stage we have just created, and we have built it using staging configuration and run it using staging. So that's why it is calling the stage URL, which is as expected. So now we have seen we can create a new environment, and we can build it using the new environment and run it using that. How we can do that? So we have done that. Now next thing what we can do, what if we build it using the default build and run option? Let us check that as well. So here we are going to build it by ng-build. Right now it is not showing any data because we do not have a proper domain host name for production and development, due to which it is not showing data on the browser. But if you have proper URL for that one, it will work. Now default run to run the run command for without any configuration option, it's ngSer -o. Let us check which environment it will pick. Now it is choosing the production environment. So why it is choosing the production environment? Now let us check and that as well. So let us open the angular.json file and let us go to serve option it here. Inside that we have configuration, and you can see the default configuration we have chosen as in production, due to which it is pointing to the production. Let us make it as in development and check what will happen if we make the development as in default option. So basically we are playing with the script which we have written in angular.json and trying out various options, how those are working. Now let us check this option as well. Now it should point to the development environment because we have made it default configuration as an development environment. Before that, let me close some options like this one. Fine. Now it is building. Next thing, we can run it using ngser-o. Make sure you have saved the file after the change. Now it should point to the development environment because we have made the default configuration as a development. Now it is showing the development environment. Seems good, which is working as expected because it is trying to point to the development environment because we have made the default configuration as a development. Seems good. Now we can try one more thing as a last thing, like let's say this is our development environment. Now we can copy this URL. For now we can comment out this and let us point to our localhost URL so that it should show the result. Let us check how it will happen. Like 4200 is our default URL, HTTP localhost 4200. Now let us see, we can, because by default it is pointing to the development environment and we have made changed this URL to point to localhost 4200. Now what we can do, now we can run it using ngser-o and check how it goes. Now it should show the end-to-end result because we are pointing to the development environment to API URL starting with localhost 4200. Seems good. It is showing the data which is as expected without any error. So we have achieved all the objectives and we have seen how we can create different environment and configuration for all those, and how we can change the build and serve script in angular.json file to run build and run for respective environments. So I hope you must have enjoyed this video. I will request you to please like and subscribe the same. Thank you so much for watching this.